So I'm here with CastAR. This is their really nifty, lightweight pair of glasses headset.
We make a new kind of glasses that you put on, and then they show a 3D picture that appears right in your world. It's going to spring out of your tabletop or your wall, and you can walk around it and look at it from all sides. You can interact, and you can play with more people. So you could have 10 or 15 people around the table playing a game together, seeing each other, but only seeing the view from their perspective and the parts of it that are appropriate to the game they got.
So we saw a couple of demos here, a couple of really simple demos. We had like a Marble Madness kind of game, which was kind of nifty, but when I started moving around, I realized that the other player was just gone, and I'm like, where did they go? And then I didn't realize when the other player was seeing their perspective on their little marble. And then we played a Battleship game, which was kind of neat, because I get to look at the board, and I see a big empty space. They see a big empty space on my side, and we get to interact. But I can't help but imagine what this would be like in other environments with other bigger, fancier games, or like grid-based board games where you've got a situational awareness for characters. Like, well, they only see or experience this, but the other player can't know what's going on with this guy. Kind of like a D&D map. Maybe.
Exactly. In fact, we have deep roots in tabletop gaming. That's why we're really focusing to begin with on the tabletop. And so you can imagine a D&D game where you see just what your character can see, but the DM can get an overview or God's eye view to see what's going on. Also, you can get more to what a particular character might see. If it goes into a dark region, then somebody who can see in the dark will be able to see, but the other characters will be stumbling around. And so you can really have really have a customized experience. We have also a kind of 3D controller. You were using this both as just an ordinary game controller with a joystick and a trigger, as well as I think in the Battleship game you're using it to move around. We have other games where it can appear like a lightsaber, and you can imagine that some games I can see how long the thing really is, and you can't, because that's really important for the subtlety of my game. Or a different game like a lightsaber where we both see the whole extension.
Full-on lightsaber battles.
Yeah, we have some pretty fun lightsaber games too.
All right, so one of the other things I noticed when I was experiencing this little fun game that we were playing here is that it's rendering from the perspective of where I am with the glasses. So what exactly is telling the headset where I am versus what the board map?
In the middle here are two image sensors, and they look at the board. Right now they see that device at the end of the board, but we're shifting the design to spread all through because we want to get rid of all the wires, right?
Yeah.
And from that they compute where your head is in 6 degrees. I do that 120 times a second. Okay. And then the game engine, therefore, it looks like a camera inside your game engine. If you had a Unity game, we have a plugin that makes it easy to bring up an existing Unity game in just a few minutes because the glass is just like two cameras in the scene. And then we just move the cameras around depending on how you move your head.
So that would be very similar to like any kind of VR setup within the game, but you're not immersed inside of a black box. You're
part of the world.
Onto.
You can see your friends, you can trash talk your friends, you can elbow your friends, as I know. You can drink alcohol, arbitrary amounts. This stuff is quite washable. You don't tend to get sick. But more importantly, you can do stuff that is natural to us as humans, but is sort of invalid in VR. Like most VR designers prevent you from being able to lean forward like this, because that's a particularly queasy gesture for people. But since you're anchored to the real world, in us, you can do that. And when you lean forward, you get actually more detail. Like you might see the D&D figures out. If you were playing real D&D, it'd be like this. You sort of see the D&D figures, and when you lean in, you start to see the detail, their eyes or the folds in their clothing. With our glasses, you get that same kind of experience.
Okay, so one of the other things that we noticed and I talked about here just a minute ago with you was that you're not actually getting anything projected specifically onto the lens themselves. It is a reflection off of the surface, which prevents you from staring at your hand in front of your face. You're actually looking at the surface that's across the board, and that's what's giving you...
Huge advantage of our approach. When you're always looking far away. That means your eyes you don't get any eye strain, and therefore you can wear this thing 4 or 5 hours a day and work or play, depending on what you're doing with it for an extended period. Second thing it gives us is this whole question of what's called occlusion. If I stick my hand out, I don't see the game board, I see my hand. I don't need any complex computation to figure out whether the hand should be there or not. Ordinary physics just does it for me for free. That's why I can lean down where there's no board and then see my drink and pick it up and drink it, or my phone if I want to text my friends while I'm playing, and also so I could have little virtual characters. We have a couple of little pucks here that have a bit of game board on them. And you can imagine, you know,
Just a little piece of plastic with reflective
yeah,
surface on it.
I think we did this one out of a lens cap, but that's prototype. That's how you do prototyping.
Absolutely.
And you can push it around, and you could actually have a little character that you're physically moving, but he's appears only in your glasses. And so it could be a little dragon, and maybe, you know, belches out flame and melts a bunch of soldiers or something like that. But instead of just moving him indirectly with a game controller, you're actually physically reaching into the game and moving it. And we have a bunch of ideas of how we want to extend this sense of having physical experience in your game.
Kind of changes the way you play chess. I mean, really, think about that. You can,
It does, or sports games, you know, you got at the end zone opposite your friend and the team, and you can be like, I got you, sacked your quarterback, or something like that. You know, those are, I mean, it's just more fun than doing it over a headset, right?
Now, one of the other things I like tearing apart technology and figuring out what you guys have done with this. So I noticed that both of the lenses that you have here are polarized. And now, are they polarized? They're obviously polarized differently to adjust for what eye can see what?
Yeah, they're circularly polarized the opposite way. It's the same technology that you go when you go to the cinema. You go to the movies and they give you 3D glasses. Okay, and what we do is each of these projectors is projecting what your eye can see. But if you're looking at me, you know, you can move your eyes from one side to the other and overlap. So what we do is each projector projects a slightly overlapping picture, and then we don't bother to track your eyes or anything. Your eyeballs just turn to look at whatever you want to look at in the scene, and you get exactly the correct position.
And now, what's the field of vision that each one of these projectors? I mean, what's
These
the
are
angle of
HD
view?
displays, for each eye, 720p displays, and they're a little over 70 degrees horizontally, and so they're 16 by 9.
So combined, what do you get within the glasses? What do you get? Obviously, less
Over
than-
100. You know, I mean, they don't overlap completely because there's stuff you can see out of the side of this eye that you can't ever see with this eye. So we just overlap enough so that it looks like the real world.
Now, is that also how it gives the three-dimensional effect on the game board?
Exactly, because each eye is seeing what it ought to see, and then your brain, of course, stitches it up just like it would in the real world.
Okay, now one other thing I want to go ahead and bring the camera over here. One of the other things I want to talk about with this board is that this is a reflective surface. This device over here is what's providing the tracking for where you're looking.
Two image sensors lean over and look at that 120 times a second. Next year, we're going to be releasing big developer, high volume developer kits, and they will eliminate that. They'll just look on the board and figure out where it goes.
Now, is that going to mean you're going to be moving that to somewhere else on the board, or is it going to be?
We're going to get rid of the wires, and I mean, our vision is that anybody from 8 to 88 can have fun with it. Obviously, grown-ups have different kind of games from kids, right? But our vision is the kids, if grandma buys them and gives them to the kids, that they can just tear open the paper and put down the game board and play within a minute. Well, that means we got to get rid of accessories that require plugging in, because that's not fun.
And one other thing I want to talk about when it comes to this reflective surface is that we had, like I said, you've got the puck that you've got here. You've got a little card that looks like that you can have, and we've actually using this as a nice reflective surface. We'll just hand that in from here. This is just a piece of this board that's got the reflective surface. So when I was playing, we held this up high, and I could just pick my head up, and suddenly I'm looking at the board, and I can see whatever the eye would actually be from there. And oh, we've got another piece of toy here. I'll hand that back to. Another piece of this is this giant reflective piece of cloth that you could just hang on a wall and go about your merry way, and suddenly you have a much larger space that you can play this game in.
So we have, we're focusing on the tabletop, but we got people using these early developer hardware for all sorts of crazy things, and a couple of different teams are working on building holodeck experiences. You fill a whole room and have 15 to 20 people in a room with a dinosaur walking around, and that sounded kind of cool to me. And then they gave me a demo just of one wall. And I can't believe the Tyrannosaurus Rex or the subwoofer. That was actually scary, and I even knew what we were doing. I was really blown away by that, and that's part of the cool part about having other developers is they do stuff you don't expect. For us, it's a tabletop, but because that's more approachable for people and it's easier sort of intro the technology. But this reflective stuff is the same stuff that you have on a running shoes or a jacket or a safety jacket. It reflects the beam exactly back the same way you came. So one advantage is if you and I are playing, it doesn't shine and scatter and you don't get interfered with by the other player. You just see your image. The other thing is it's so cheap that you could be sewing it into clothes. You could be making your own kind of mats. We don't really care, right? We want people to have fun. And so what we want to do is make the technology that makes it easy for them to extend it in different ways that that work for them. What you saw here was 2 players, and they're actually connected by Ethernet cable. So it's we already have, what we're demonstrating here is network play in the same room, right? Think of it as a LAN party, essentially, kind of play. But they don't have to be in the same room. In fact, again, talking about our developers, we had some folks in France who did a great dungeon development kit where you could walk through this world, and they had some people playing with VR heads. I think it was a DK2, and on the PC, and then at our office, they came to demonstrate. Some of them came over to demonstrate in our office in California what they developed for the AR glasses. So it was a completely mixed mode experience. Different people, some people being remote, some people being together, and like I said, I hadn't even conceived of that kind of thing myself.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. This is I can see great things happening with. Actually, one last question. Now about the size of these. These are prototypes. What can we expect as the final product being?
The ones we're going to announce and ship next year will weigh about half. So this weighs 130 grams. Compare that to like a standard VR headset, like a Crescent Bay, I think is 493 grams. It's a lot lighter. We're going to cut this weight in half for the next ones.
What kind of? I mean, this is a relatively large size of plastic.
Yes.
Is it going to be shrink down? Is it going to be much smaller? I mean,
We're hoping the glasses will be much closer, actually, the ones you're wearing in terms of the size of the lens.
And then just have like devices on the side.
The projectors will actually be much smaller. Actually, a lot of this is actually empty space, and a lot of this electronics here is going to go to the other end of the cable, so it's not sitting next to your head. So that's where we're going. A lot of other exciting things based on what we learned from having these out and what our developers have taught us. You'll see, we'll have further announcements of a lot of fun stuff over the next few months. If you go to our website, we shoot our videos through the glasses. So you know how, I mean, we all know we see the ad for something. When I was a kid, I remember I wanted that big truck that would climb up the mountains, and when my parents bought it for me, it was this big.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
had one.
And those videos, were great, huge, wonderful concept videos. Then you get the product, and like the HoloLens, it's a little picture like this. What you see on our website is what you get. And you guys have seen the real thing. You can go check the website to see that I'm telling the truth. www.CastAR.com.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, guys, special thanks to Corsair. They're the reason that we're here. Be sure to check out all of our coverage, and you can enter to win a Scimitar mouse. Just go ahead and click on the screen to see our Corsair video. Good luck in winning the Scimitar MMO gaming mouse.